Welcome to Launched. I'm Charlie Chapman, and today I'm excited to bring you the prolific iOS development YouTuber, Sean Allen. Sean, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Great to be here. I missed the background music though. The nice.
Yeah. Well, now you made it weird because I was going to add that in post, so it sounded like it. Maybe give it a little reverb, but good. We just get it awkward right off the bat and get that out of the way.
Do it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm super excited about this. I haven't. Just a little background here. We've met a couple times since getting here, never met before, and I've been like awkwardly avoiding asking you questions.
I'll start talking about stuff. He's like, I gotta leave.
Yeah, literally just like walking away. So I finally get into things, and something I haven't told you yet is when I joined the like iOS community, it was kind of a weird thing. I'd been doing like web development for a long time, and I got an opportunity to join an iOS team. And so I was like, yes, I'm going to jump on that. And then I went home and downloaded Xcode for the very first time. I literally didn't know anything about Swift, anything, and the first thing I watched was a Sean Allen video.
The very first thing?
Literally, actually, no, I'm lying. The first thing is I read a couple chapters or a couple sentences of Apple's like Swift book, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to YouTube.
Right to YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember which video it was?
Yes, it was the storyboards versus code video. And I think that's it's a perfect example of what I like about your video style, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But it was like, I didn't know what storyboards were, had never heard that word before. And you helped give me the context for a thing so that whenever I was at a meeting at work or something, I had some of that context as a complete new junior person. It was so cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I remember the whole storyboards, programmatic debates back in the day.
Looking back on it, I was looking for the title and I was like, wow, I guess I have been doing this long enough to say, I remember the olden days. Nobody talks about that really anymore.
I just had the conversation with Jessie a little last night at the speaker dinner when I guess she mentioned she hasn't really touched UIKit. And at first I was like, wow, how is that possible? But then you're like, oh yeah, SwiftUI has really been out for 5 years now. So it's not, someone can still have a good amount of experience and have never touched UIKit.
Yeah. So before we get into YouTube and your indie app thing that you've got going, I want to give everyone a background on who you are. So the 3 questions I always ask is, where are you from? Mm-hmm. Do you have a formal education related to what you do? And then we can talk about your career that led up to starting your YouTube channel.
All right, let's do it. So I'm from Pennsylvania, small town. And the formal education, no, I don't have a computer science degree, which actually plays into the whole start of the YouTube channel and everything. I have a finance and economics degree. So the whole reason I even moved out to San Francisco in the first place was to get into venture capital and all that stuff. But then I learned how to code and that completely changed my whole life. So yeah, the career leading up to becoming a developer was working at a small startup. I was the growth lead. So I'm trying to build these static web pages for my Google Ads campaigns. Or no, I'm sorry, I needed static web pages. And then I didn't want to bother my developers because it was a team of 3 and they're building the product. So hey, can I have my little landing page? So I just learned myself. And then that magical moment of I have this idea in my head of what I want to be on the screen. You type a couple words and then it shows up on the screen. And it was just mind blowing. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I caught the bug right away.
Yeah, it's an addicting, I don't know if you all many probably have experienced it themselves, but have you ever witnessed somebody else do it? Coding is hard. We all like to say oh, what we do is really easy. But when you're first trying to understand these concepts, it's really hard. But that moment where you get something to work and your brain lights up. Yeah. And then the extra bit is when you want to change a small thing. And then you go back in and you fight that, you get that to work, and it's just this feedback loop of whatever the drug is in your brain that makes you happy.
It was just a real revelation for me because I didn't start coding until my mid-30s. So I just grew up thinking like you said, oh, that's magic. That's way too hard. I could never do that. No way. And then when I did it, as simple as it was, just basic HTML, CSS, nothing insane. But that little moment was oh shit, this is we're good. I can do this. Let's go. And then that's all I did. I just became obsessed with it for a little bit.
So at this point, it's web development then, right? Or literally just static HTML pages.
Yes, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So at that same startup, they were building a cross-platform app. This is in 2014, by the way. And they built it in Ionic, which is JavaScript, I think. I don't know.
What?
It's called Ionic.
Oh, Ionic.
Yeah. I didn't know what it was. I just knew the app sucked. And I was a big Apple fanboy, and I was playing with it, and I was like, I can't believe, like, I'm a part of this team building this app. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm like embarrassed of it. I don't want to show anybody too. So anyway, that's when I knew. I was like, it was going to be native iOS development. And it was always iOS just because the Apple fanboy.
Okay, so you went straight from like, I need to build a static HTML site to, I want to do some kind of native iOS stuff. What was the next steps? Like, how do you start doing that?
Yeah, so at the time, again, I'm in San Francisco, and boot camps, were pretty big back then.
Yeah.
And there was an iOS boot camp called Mobile Makers that like went out of business, I think in 2016, 2017. So I was like one of the last cohorts to go through that. Pretty successful cohort though, because there's only 8 of us. I think that's probably why they went out of business. But I think 2 of them ended up at Apple eventually. One of them was like a founding iOS dev on like the Coinbase app. So
Oh
yeah.
Just kidding.
Anything I did came like 3 or 4 years later, but they like at the gate, they got hired pretty quickly.
Wow. So how was that experience? I've never gone through a boot camp or known somebody personally who's gone through those.
It was interesting, especially with what I do now in like teaching, because like they teach you the bare bones, like they teach you the basics, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just 8 hours a day. That's what I say was good about it, because we can all say like, oh, I'm going to learn to code. I'm going to be self-disciplined. I'm going to do 5 hours a day, whatever. Life happens. People don't do that. It's like when people say, I'm going to get up and go to the gym every morning.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I'm going to learn a language, and then you're just keeping up your streak with one Duolingo thing.
Exactly. So the benefit of the boot camp is, you pay, I think I paid $11,000. So like, I'm going to be there every day, 8 to 5, right? So it forced me to like really focus on it for a short period of time.
Yeah, that's cool. So, okay, you get through that boot camp. What next? Were you just like, I'm getting an iOS job? That's what I'm wanting.
Yeah, that was the goal. I applied to like 60 companies, which at the time I thought that was a large number. But then like hearing from a lot of people, I was like, oh, I got lucky.
Wow.
But it only resulted in 3 interviews, and I failed all 3 of them, except one of them I thought went well. I knew it went bad, but I knew I was better than that. So I told them, I was like, hey, do you have anything I can do over the weekend? Like, give me a take-home project. Is there anything I can show you my skills? Because I feel like that interview did not represent like my skill set.
Yeah.
So like, okay, cool, here, do this, little take-home project. Knocked it out in the weekend. I guess I like blew away their expectations. And then they sent me an email Monday saying, wow, this was very impressive to do over the weekend. Why don't you come in? I misread the email. Why don't you come in to meet the team? My naivete was like, oh, I got the job. They're going to hire me. I missed the part, which is basically like the final interview, which you've all done final interviews. That's the 5-hour, you're talking to 5 different people, you're on the whiteboard. So I walked into that thing thinking I'm just like a little meet and greet. Hi, I'm the new member of the team. And so I did no prep, no nothing. Luckily, it went well enough that they hired me.
It probably helped with the nerves a little bit.
Oh, it did. Well, yeah. Until the moment you find out like what you did. And you're like,
that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Luckily, like obviously the whiteboard went horrible, but the culture interviews with like the CTO and the CEO went very well. So I think that's kind of what did it in the end.
Yeah, it's weird. Interviewing, like I know on either side, interviewing is a hard thing. Finding somebody on that side is also really hard. But the live coding interviews, especially like over Zoom, it feels like you're interviewing somebody on their like code presentation skills, not really how good they are at like creating code alone and then submitting a PR or something, which is 90% of what we all actually do. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so then you got the job.
Right.
What was that experience like? Like, what were you building? And
so it was a company called Breathometer. They were actually the first. They were on Shark Tank. They were the first to get all 5 sharks invested. I think they got like $1 million. This is like 2013.
Okay.
And it was like at the time, it was like an alcoholic, like obviously thing, right? Do a breathalyzer.
Yeah, a breathalyzer test.
Thing, right? So.
Was it a device that you like?
Yeah, it hooked into the headphone jack, RIP.
Oh, yeah.
So, gone anyway. But what they sold me on, that wasn't why I went there. They were going to do this, like this breath thing that could detect acetone in your breath, which for like, diabetics or like losing weight. Anyway, it was a cool like fitness type angle. And they brought me on to basically build that app. And that was kind of like their next phase. So that's what they sold me on. I'm telling you this because a lot of times startups will like paint this beautiful picture of like, oh, you're going to do this. When we raise our Series A, we'll give you a raise. So just be careful of that, because I got burned by, basically I got sold on the one project, got put on a different project, which was like a oral health thing that I couldn't care less about. And then like 3 weeks after I started, our manager, oh, by the way, I signed on for $60,000, which obviously that is different everywhere in the country.
Right, yeah.
For a developer in San Francisco, that is below minimum wage, I'd say. So my vice president came up and said, okay, hey, you're doing very well. We're underpaying you. Because what they did, they hired two of us at the same time. And they both gave us that. So they were trying to get like a 2-for-1 deal. Two junior developers that don't know anything for the price of one, kind of. So anyway, he knew, he was like, okay, we need to not get anything crazy, but just market rate.
Yeah.
But again, it was the whole Series A promise. Hey, we're going to raise our Series A next month. When that happens, we'll bump you up. The Series A got delayed. So here we are. That was in like February. And then we're, 4 or 5 months later, still getting the runaround. And then finally I was like, I'd gotten some contracts on the side and I had enough to like go full time. So I was like, hey, I didn't like bluff or anything. I was like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks, like I'm out. And they like panicked. They were like, whoa. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? So I said 120 and then they came back with 100 and I was like, okay.
And you stayed on?
For a little bit longer. Then as some startups do, the company started like falling apart. That's another thing about startups. I'm sure most of you have like some experience in it, but especially like Silicon Valley and everything, you think everyone has their shit together from the outside. Everyone knows what they're doing. They're a bunch of geniuses and it's just a complete circus behind the scenes. Like Revenue Cat, right? Revenue Cat's like that.
Yeah, like Revenue Cat, yeah. I mean, saying it's a circus behind the scenes, it's a circus in front of the scenes as well, as most people here have probably seen. We literally have a little spinning wheel and plushies.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, it's very circus-like, isn't it? Any company you go to, they're trying to sell you, but like startups, by the nature of having raised rounds, one of their skill sets is pitching people. So you can get pitched pretty hard, especially if it's like your first experience with these types of companies and stuff.
So then the next step's continuing on with me being just naive, dumb Sean, doesn't know anything about the industry, right? So I got burned by that. And then I was like a year and a half into my career, again, self-taught, just did a boot camp, learned on the internet. I got a recruiter email from Facebook, which they recruit everybody. I think once you're like on LinkedIn for over a year with like a developer job, you just get like an automatic email from these companies.
Yeah, they're like bots that are scraping. Yeah.
But again, I didn't know any better. I'm like, oh, Facebook wants me? Okay, great. Yeah. So I kind of got, not a big head, but I was like, oh, I'm going to go for that. So and I knew that this job was coming to an end. So I quit that job and I was like, I'm going to spend the next, month or two just practicing, cracking the coding interview, whiteboard stuff, just basically interview prep. To long story short, I went and interviewed at a couple of the big companies and just got laughed out of the room, basically. Again, the whiteboard, because I don't have a computer science degree. Yeah. So all the types of questions you're going to get asked at a Facebook interview, I just did horribly on. I don't think I got asked iOS questions.
Really?
One time I interviewed at YouTube, even after I had the YouTube channel, and they knew I was for an iOS, and I didn't get asked a single iOS question.
That's so interesting. And the job description is iOS developer. Yeah, that's really strange.
But this is actually where the genesis of the YouTube channel comes in. Because I started my YouTube channel because I was pissed off, and it was out of spite. Because I felt I went through that experience.
YouTube decided not to hire me. I'm going to get them to pay. No.
I'm sorry. YouTube was a few months later. This was after the Facebook one.
Okay.
Just because I felt like robbed. I was like, I know I'm a pretty decent iOS developer, and I just felt like that wasn't a good representation of what I could do, that type of interview. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to put all my knowledge out on the internet. And someday, after 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, someone will just know me and they'll want me and they'll hire me, right? Because
it was like a recruiting, networking thing. It was more than I'm not making a business out of this. I'm using this to try and get a job.
No, the business didn't come till I was 3 years into it.
That's interesting. Yeah, so that's the origin of this podcast too. I was in consulting, like I described earlier. And I knew I was going to get sucked back into the Microsoft tech stack because that's why they hired me, which would be fair. And so I was like, I need a job that says iOS. But I knew nobody would hire me if I had 6 months of experience. So I was like, what if I can trick people to talk to me for an hour on the internet?
Yeah, kind of worked, didn't it?
Yeah, and it worked, right? It was really helpful for networking. So
essentially it was going to be like a just like an online resume,
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. And building a brand and all that stuff, just to people, just building a brand sounds cheesy, but just, I wanted people to know me and know my skill set, know what I could do, just show them. So I'm a big believer in show me what you can do, don't tell me. You can bullshit. So that's how it got started. And then it evolved into I'm actually helping people. Got a lot of emails.
And just going to the very beginning, what was the beginning? What were you doing? Were you just teaching frameworks? Were you I know all of your current stuff, but I intentionally avoided going back as much as I wanted.
No, I mean at the time I was watching a lot of Casey Neistat videos. This is anybody that watches YouTube a lot. This is when Casey was doing his daily vlogs back in the prime. So I started doing some vlogs about my life in San Francisco as a developer.
Skateboarding and
I did have a booster board.
Oh, really? Oh, you had a booster board. Wow, you really did do the Casey Neistat.
I did not actually film on it because I was terrified of it.
Yeah, that would be scary.
So, yeah, I wasn't that good at it.
Talking about, I almost said SwiftUI. Talking about storyboards on a boosted board.
so I did like kind of vlogs because I knew that is what kind of made me unique, like actually being in San Francisco and Silicon Valley and like kind of showing that. Because again, in 2017, there wasn't a ton of people doing that. Like now you kind of get that all the time. But yeah, so I did that. And then also just kind of, I always knew to kind of teach below what I knew, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've always tried to not like act like I know more than I do. So like even now, like my content's pretty much for like junior developers, pretty basic for the most part. And that's also because I don't want the misperception of like acting like I know more than I do.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to feel like a fraud. There's already enough imposter syndrome that when you're like trying to teach something above your skill level, so.
Yeah. Did you find like once you started doing that, did you start feeling more confident because like the idea of teaching somebody is like, oh, I guess I do kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, when you teach something, you definitely have to like know it way better than just, hey, I read the documentation once, I built it.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, you definitely have to. And in the beginning, this is just the learning curve. The YouTube comments can be a little brutal and a lot like.
Really, I never heard that.
Well, nowadays, yeah, but they're right most of the time. They're like, oh, you messed this up. Why you even teaching this topic? You don't know what you're talking about because you messed up this little aspect of it. Got that a few times earlier in the career, and that was kind of like a wake up call to be like, oh, I need to research these videos more. And like cover every angle, like kind of like know everything about the API kind of before I start teaching it. So in the early days, I got beat up a little bit.
I feel like there was an era where YouTubers talking about how you should approach comments was a hot topic. I haven't heard that in a while though, but you were doing it during that era. So it sounds like you're on you should look at comments and like use them as feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything has changed. I think I learned and adapted because I even do it in my courses now. Sometimes people say like, you repeat yourself a lot because I'll be like, I know you might be thinking about this because it's like, I can like hear the YouTube comments as I'm like explaining something, after just years of doing it. So I always try to like, head it off at the pass. Like 8 Mile it. I like address it before they like tell it to me. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you started doing that. Where's the point where, I mean, I guess really the question is, did it get an audience really quickly, or were you kind of just making this thing and you were doing it as a fun hobby? Yeah, no, there was only a couple people watching it. Really
I mean, that's how they all start. It took me 6 months to get my first 500 subscribers.
Okay.
And then I did a series, my first interview prep series, things on like, delegates and protocols or classes versus struct, the very basic. Because that's what I was doing at the time. I was doing interviews. So I was like, I'm interviewing at all these places. Here's what I'm getting asked nonstop. So I took like the top questions I was getting asked and made a video about each one.
Oh, that's really smart.
And I would say that's kind of what made my channel, take off. Because I went from 6 months to get to 500 subscribers and then another 6 months to get from about 10,000, from 500 to about 10,000.
Yeah, that's like hockey stick growth.
Yeah, that was like a playlist of, I don't know, 10 to 15 videos. I don't know. And that's kind of what got things going.
What do you think was the main, obviously the content has to be good, but in terms of finding that first group that causes the snowball, was it like a SEO kind of thing? Like, were you hitting the right questions? Do you play that game? Like, how is that?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, because, we all go onto YouTube to search for things, I imagine, right? So you kind of put yourself in those shoes on what do I think are most topics being searched? And I knew the interview questions once were. But I think what differentiates me a little bit, and I'm not saying I'm for everybody, right? Everybody learns differently, so there's a certain teacher for each learning style. But I think what differentiates me is I learned how the people watching my content are like, I'm going to go on YouTube and learn to code, and that's exactly how I learned. So I wasn't like a child prodigy. Don't have a computer science degree. Again, I didn't start coding till I was 32. So I remember what it was like to not know anything, be scared, and try to learn how to code from YouTube videos. So I always keep that in mind when I'm teaching things and explaining things.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what differentiated, my content, what made people resonate with me, especially people in those same shoes that were doing that same thing.
Right. And you mentioned earlier, you're still kind of aiming at that junior mid-level developer. So does that mean, has the target audience grown with you, or do you, you mentioned repeating yourself, do you feel like you're still reaching kind of the same audience and it's a new kind of cohort of viewers or something that you're kind of targeting?
Yeah, it's interesting because there are some people that have been around for a very long time. I see Dan and Michaela sitting in the front row. Dan's been around since day one. We're doing live streams to 10 people.
Wow.
Dan was there, so yeah. Definitely people have stuck around. There is definitely new cohorts all the time, but it's been fun watching people evolve. Because now that I've been doing it for 7 years, I've seen people go from like the just learning phase to now they're at all these like big tech companies, like 5 years into the career, they're killing it now. And it's like, oh, I remember you when you were,
What is that? So it's, what you're describing sounds like a little community. Is that in YouTube comments, or is there somewhere else where you're kind of engaging with the audience?
Mainly Twitter.
Twitter. Oh, yeah.
There's some people that are YouTube comments a lot, but it's mostly like Twitter.
Yeah.
That's the...
Twitter seems like, the microblogging platform of choice, whatever it is tomorrow. But it seems like I think Gruber says it all the time, where it's like, that's the best comment system that he can imagine for a blog. It feels like it's better designed for that than the comments under a YouTube video or something. Yeah. Reddit also, for like a different type of audience, it feels like could also be that.
Right, yeah. No, I like the back and forth on Twitter. Because at least on my back end on YouTube, like the comments, it's very easy to get lost. Because there's no like mention system. Like when people tag me on Twitter, it shows up at the top of my notifications feed. I see it. I seize it. But YouTube they kind of get lost after a while. So usually I'll reply once to YouTube comment and like that's it. It's gone into the ether. There's no like back and forth.
Yeah. It's not a place for a conversation or for other people really to jump in. Even though it technically can, it doesn't feel natural the same way.
Yeah.
And they keep tweaking the homepage to move things around, and that's confusing. Yeah, that's true. So at this point, you're getting the hockey stick growth. You got your silver button or whatever. What is
No, not yet. That's 100,000. I think I got that in October of 2022.
Oh, wow. Okay,
so that came a while
later. Yeah. Okay. So going back to that, though, at this point, were you like, this could be like a business? Like, were you making money already through YouTube?
I mean, you make a little bit on AdSense, but it would be like $100 a month. And maybe I would get like a small sponsor here or there for 100 back then, like 100 or 200. So it was nothing that I thought I could make into a business at that point.
Right.
It took 3 years of growing an audience until I actually was like, oh, I think this could be like a business.
And when you say 3 years, that's 3 years of you like, this is a tool for networking and finding a job. That was completely how you were thinking about it that time.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Well, I didn't know what would happen. Like I knew just becoming known in the community, for whatever reason, like I knew like that would open doors.
Right.
What doors? I don't know.
Glory.
Right. Yeah. Give me all the no, but like I just knew that it would be a nice asset. Because it's like, your network is your net worth, and it's just another way of building a network. So I didn't know what would happen from it, but I knew it'd be good to have.
Yeah, and it feels like a rare thing, so you probably want to hold on to like, I have this, I need to not let go.
I mean, it is unique. I mean, now there's more people doing it, but at the time when I started, there was like 4 other iOS dev YouTubers, so it was kind of like a unique thing.
Yeah, that's cool. So you said about 3 years in, it started feeling like it could be a business. Did you change gears? Did you change how you're doing things, or what was that like?
It was, so let me go back a little bit, because it wasn't until I launched my first course that I was like, oh, this could be a business, because I knew it would make a decent amount of money, but it like blew away expectations. And I think obviously like COVID had something to do with it, because I launched it at the end of 2019. And my business did very well during COVID. I feel very like bad saying that.
Yeah.
But because everyone's stuck indoors, everyone's like, I want to learn a new skill. Let me try something.
I worked at an e-commerce site, so it was similar.
Yeah. So that's when it was like, oh, okay, this is it. We can do this.
Yeah. Okay. So then once you decided to do that, what was the game plan? Were you making content based on sponsorship deals? Were you going out and looking for sponsors? Like, how do you kind of build this into a sustainable lifestyle?
I didn't start going out looking for sponsors until actually just recently, when I just started to kind of like make a push. Because the bad thing, and maybe some indie devs can know this, I was talking to Yordi about this last night, that once you make a certain amount of money, especially with like an indie app where it's kind of on autopilot. Same thing, once I have a couple courses out there, like you can really struggle with motivation, because you can coast and still be fine.
Right. It takes a long time until it starts falling apart, and then catching back up is like way harder at that point.
So that's where I'm at right now. People may know I just kind of launched a new course, because my old courses, they kind of die after 3 to 4 years. If you build something on iOS 13 and iOS 14, especially in SwiftUI, it's just a pain to go back and update. You have to basically re-record everything, because it changes so much.
Making content that you can just go update.
Exactly. Yeah. So the reason I was saying that is you were asking. I can't remember. I went on the
like how did you change kind of how you were doing the YouTube channel to make it a sort of business?
Yeah. So the big shift was going after views versus going after the right views. So meaning I can do a video. My channel could be so much bigger if I wanted it to be, because you can just make general software developer stuff. Like I have some videos that do very well, like 37 tips for junior software developers. and that gets a ton of views, but that's JavaScript developers watch that. They're not buying my courses.
Yeah.
So now that was the shift in trying to get more views, more subscribers, which is just a vanity metric. Doesn't really do anything for you. I switched it to, okay, I'm going to do this super niche iOS thing that is going to drive traffic to my courses or make people think like, oh, I like the way he teaches, and then explore more like on the courses. So I kind of focus more on like for example, 100,000 view video about general software development does almost nothing for me or my business. But,
because the way you're making money is through
courses.
The courses that you're selling.
Yeah. So if a YouTube video that gets 1,500 views, which from the outside looks like a failure. Oh, that video sucked. But that's 1,500 people that are learning from me that could, drive traffic to the website.
That's
so it's kind of, again, to sum it up, the shift was going after the right viewer instead of any viewer.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's like a marketing 101 kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, you can buy a Super Bowl ad, but there's going to be 1 million people that don't care about your product that see it, or way more than 1 million people.
Exactly.
Or you could buy a ad in a magazine that it doesn't get very many people, but the people 100% of the people are going to care about your product there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's why you're not dropping phones on day one to see if they smash and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so at this point, are you still doing contracting work to mix with it, or what's the sort of makeup of the business while you're building this out?
Yeah, so it was just purely videos and courses. In the summer of 2020, I did a pretty big project because he was taking my course, and I told him no 5 times. He's like, I want you to build this out for me. I want you to build this out for me. I was like, no. So then finally I got around to okay, I'll do it, but here are my terms. I think it was $100,000. Half paid up front. I just started listing things if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it so I'd be stupid to say no, kind of
right.
thing. So then, I worked with Tim Condon. There he is over there. He worked with me on that project because we did in Swift, did it Swift on the server. He handled that.
Oh wow. Nice.
So anyway, in 2020, that was a pretty big project for me, income wise. And then, but that was kind of the last one I did. After that, I was like, no, I wanted to focus on building my business. Because it's a classic saying, if I'm giving someone else my time, I'm building their business. Sure, I may be paid well in the short term.
Right.
But especially with the thing like YouTube and the videos, it just compounds, right? I always compare it to just building another brick on the wall every time I release a video, because those videos are out there. A video I did 3 years ago, still getting good views, still driving people to the website.
So you're focusing on the sort of video and training and all of that, but you're not at this point really day-to-day building software for a company or for yourself or anything. How are you keeping up with it? How are you making sure everything you're saying is still relevant? What's the method for keeping up with that?
Yeah, it's just watch a lot of WWC videos, a lot of documentation, that kind of stuff. And yeah, because I did a lot of the new stuff that came out too.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of no one really knows yet,
Right.
Aside from the WWC videos and
I guess again, going with the target audience, it is more introductory level thing, so that makes sense.
Well, and also the way I thought about that is just, it's like a pyramid, right? There's way more people looking for the introductory stuff. The more advanced the niche you go, the smaller the audience gets.
Right.
So it's you can target those niche things, but it's hard to build a business out of that.
Yeah, you'd have to start charging way more, which that probably at certain niches, maybe they have more disposable income because they're more senior.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably a lot more challenging.
I also think, and maybe, I don't know, people can say, but I don't think senior developers like to buy video courses. Yeah. I think they want to get me right to the answer, give me the documentation. I don't want to watch
Control-F-able.
I don't want to watch a 15-minute video. I don't need that. Just so that's also why I keep it basic, because I don't think typically, right, in general.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, what seems like it would be really helpful, this is a segue for the professionals here. What seems like it would be really helpful is if you had an app of your own that helped feed into the content that you were making and made that classic Disney flywheel.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about making an app?
I did, Charlie.
Really?
I did. Well, you kind of led into it a little bit ago about how do you keep up with things? Because what I started to feel like a mathematician that just taught 5th grade math all day.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And it's how I'm not really flexing my muscles. I'm kind of feel stagnant. I see everyone else building cool stuff. So I kind of made the decision to try my own indie app. Made a huge mistake though, because I learned distribution is the hardest thing, which is pretty common knowledge, right?
Yeah.
But me, I'm pretty naive, if you can't even tell. I was like, I'm good. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out distribution.
Well, I have an audience. I have like.
But I made an app for YouTube creators. If I would have made an app for,
that's a good point.
I would have made an app for like a general audience or iOS developers. Yeah. So I guess that was the point I was trying to make. That was the lesson learned. I thought distribution was going to be easier than it was. It was not. In hindsight, I would have been like, okay, I need to build an app for developers or a general app. Like spoilers, the job I'm at is a podcast app. Everybody in the audience uses a podcast or a habit tracker app or a dark noise app. I don't know if you heard of that one. Anyone? It took him a second. I caught him off guard. But you know what I mean? Like a more general app for like the audience. So I did start my own app, but the mistake was doing it, not in my niche, but it also scratched my own itch. I use it every day. I built it for myself.
Yeah,
so
it's not all lost. What is the app? What was the decision point for going into it? And like, how did you launch it? Why did you run into distribution problems?
Yeah, so the app's called Creator View. It's essentially an app for people making money on YouTube, like myself, running a business to track everything, schedule content, track your income, track your taxes. It's basically like a business manager tool, which is a pretty niche concept.
Is it hitting like YouTube APIs or like how is that?
A little bit, because I do some basic like analytics, but for the most part, it's just I have a little calendar that's all my own stuff. It's not pulling down from YouTube or anything like that. And essentially where that came from is I had a Notes app that had all my business stuff in it, or in the Notes app, and I had a giant Google spreadsheet. And I remember like trying to strategize about my business. I would have my spreadsheet up. I would have all kinds of notes. And I'd be like, there's got to be like I wish I had like an iPad app, because I remember I'd be like walking around like looking. So that was the original idea. Was like, I need an iPad app that can like do all this. And I wanted it to be like nice Apple, typical stuff. So yeah, that's what kind of started it.
And like as you were building it, you were kind of feeding that back into the channel, right? You were talking about it as you started it. And how did you find that experience? Like that seems like that would be different than the sort of courses and stuff that you had been doing before.
Yeah, I just thought it would be interesting. There was no like business reason for it. I just thought it'd be interesting because I think even if you're working at a full-time job, I think most people's dream is to kind of run their own thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody wants to be like entrepreneurial like that, but like if you could just wave a magic wand and make your salary building your own app, like I feel like we would all kind of
maybe in this room, but I feel like if I surveyed like my kids' elementary school class, 90% of them would say they want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
So, you're living the dream.
There you go.
You're right next to astronaut and firefighter.
That's right. No, but I meant like the developers, right? The developers have a job. Like, I'm sure you would love to be, making full. So anyway, I thought that would be like interesting just to share the process, share what I was learning, because the idea was to like shift my whole channel. I shift gears a lot, by the way. This way, then this way, then this way. So the idea was to shift my channel because I was kind of getting bored with like typical tutorials. Again, I felt stagnant, like I said. Like I felt like a mathematician teaching 5th grade math and felt stagnant. So I was like, okay, I'm going to shift my content towards like indie dev, the business of apps, because that's truly like what I was genuinely interested. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I failed. And then the videos didn't get any views because like you can talk about doing it, but like unless you kind of have the authority and the credibility of backing it up, like I've done this, look, I've built an app to X amount of money, whatever it is, then that has more staying power.
So you're saying the content itself didn't perform well?
Yes, it didn't perform well, and I didn't perform well. So just those two combined.
I didn't meaning the app itself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so the app itself, you built it. It's like really good for your personal use case. It's an iOS and iPad app.
It's iOS, iPad, and Mac. Yeah. So I mean, I use it every day. I love it. I mean, I'm a little biased, but like, I love it. And it's like super niche because it's not just for people who have a YouTube channel, like that's pretty niche as it is. It's people who have a YouTube channel that are making like decent income off of it.
Yeah, right.
So it's like pretty niche, and it's hard. I don't know, Ariel's still here, but it's hard to target for ASO because like YouTube's got to be in my title, but then that gets a lot of like YouTube people, and then people are looking for YouTube analytics. Like people that are actually looking for a YouTube business tracker. That's tough. I need to talk to him.
You need to talk to Ariel. He might have some tips for you.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you built this out. You're proud of it. You go to launch it. What was your strategy for trying to make this like a success from like a marketing standpoint?
Yeah, so the plan was to try to get to some number, 5K MRR, 10K MRR, something like respectable, and then go to partner with one of the YouTube gurus. So there's a whole YouTube genre to teach you how to YouTube, and they have a giant following. So the idea was like, and I wanted to get initial traction on my own because I didn't want to give up a lot of the company. because I didn't want to just pay them to sponsor. I wanted them to be a partner in it, invested, all that stuff. So I was like, if I go to them now, I have to give them so much because there's nothing here,
Yeah.
But if I can go and show, hey, this is making 10K a month, it's already got X amount of users, you can see the trajectory. Now, well, one, that'd be probably more attractive to partner with for them, and then two, I wouldn't have to like give up the entire company, as a percentage.
Okay, so you're trying to make this a successful enough thing first. How?
Well, that was the plan. How? I just did like Google, or not Google AdWords, but App Store ads. And I guess I never really got to the point where I was, basically I don't have a good answer. I didn't really have a plan or a strategy.
That would be challenging because you have a really big audience, but that doesn't overlap a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Curtis is here. I think I may have literally referenced this in the last time I did this live episode, but he talked about in Slopes how it's hard to find an audience for something that's niche that has nothing to do with the like iOS community. Like we all know each other and like 9 to 5 and all these different press outlets. Like there's kind of mechanisms for that. But if 9 to 5 Mac wrote an article about your app, it's like, how many people are reading 9 to 5 Mac that are also running YouTube businesses?
4 of them.
4, there's exactly 4, yeah. So like, distribution feels incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had a plan if you could get it high enough. And the goal was to just go with like, paid
I actually just remembered what derailed me. I completely forgot about this. So I had a co-founder in the beginning, and it was good to have accountability to keep each other. Like if I didn't feel like working on the app one day, he would submit a pull request, and I would feel like oh, I didn't.
Yeah, you got to keep up.
It's like a gym buddy, right? You have that accountability, and he got hired at Apple. So obviously, couldn't compete with that.
What a jerk.
Yeah, he's on the watch team now. So that really took the wind out of my sails. And that derailed me for a little bit. And then I kind of like never really recovered from that, because then I switched back to like, okay, let me get some money coming in. So I just kind of switched back to videos and courses. That's kind of what I do. I bounce back and forth between courses and YouTube videos and then a season of working on the app.
Yeah.
But I have to go back because the app doesn't make any money. So it's like I'm putting all my human capital, all my effort into this thing that makes no money when I have this thing that is pretty leveraged, right, with the YouTube channel.
Right.
It's like, oh, I can do just a little bit of work here, make a good amount of money, or I can do a lot of work here and make no money. So there's that, like.
Yeah, that's interesting. It feels like you're in a place right now where you're a little frustrated. Are you proud of the app itself? Like, are you happy that you did this?
Well, I'm happy I did it. I am proud, but I'm not proud. I think we all feel this, right? Because the app you probably have in your head, like I would say the app I've built so far is like 10% of what it was my vision. So when I say I'm not proud of it, it's like, and you know all the flaws of your app. So I know that. Yeah, I think Jordan Morgan said something in a blog post about that. Like you're too close to it, right? You know all the flaws, you know what could be better. So when you ask me if I'm proud of it, I'm like, oh, I can do so much more. I want to do so much more. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm proud of it.
But does it feel good to have something out? I mean, I guess you already had something out there with the YouTube channel that's going. So it's not, I feel like for a lot of indies like me, it was like, that was our first sort of taste of like, there's real people out there that I'm like impacting,
Yeah.
But I guess you get that a lot with the courses and with, like you talked about, seeing people move into the community and do well and everything.
Yeah, and coming like here, like I've had so many people come up and just say, I just want to say thank you. Just want to thank you. You helped me out so much. And I've said the same thing a bunch of times, but it's like, it's so cool to put like faces to those views, right?
Avatars.
Yeah, all I see is an avatar or just like a view count. And it's like, you kind of like intellectually know you're helping people, but to actually see them, shake their hand, hear their story, like that's just like I've been very energized by this conference and like talking to everybody.
Oh yeah. This place is incredible.
Yeah, it's good.
So something like you've done something new just recently related to your career and business. You're actually like working for somebody again, which it sounds like you haven't been doing for a while.
Not quite yet. I start Friday.
Oh, you start Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what's the story there?
Yeah, I had my course launch, and then I had this thing to do here that we're talking about, this little thing. So I start Friday, but it's I wanted to work at a startup, a small team. Because, just working by myself out of my apartment on the YouTube channel, just got lonely after a while.
Yeah.
I have no one to talk to. There's no team. It's just, okay. So I was like, and again, that whole, like, I feel like I wasn't pushing myself. Even like my app is nothing crazy, right? And all this AI stuff, the Vision Pro, I was like, man, I want to be like working in the future again, or feel like I'm working in the future, kind of thing, or like where things are going. So I put out a tweet saying basically, hey, I'm available for hire. Let me know. And I said, I'm looking for a cool team, cool project. don't know if I said this in the tweet, but in my mind, I was like, yeah, pay me market rate, but it's not like a money thing, right? Because also, when you work for yourself for 5 years, working for somebody else again is very hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially having the backup. Like my tolerance for BS would probably be low, because I could be like, I don't need this out. So I wanted to make sure cool team, cool project was like #1 priority. It couldn't be just a pure money play. Yeah, so I put out that tweet, and luckily the CEO of this company called PodcastAI, building a next generation podcast app. We can get into that in a second, but telling the story of how it happened. Luckily, he'd kind of been a fan of the channel, been following me for a while. He had another product in the creator space that I like consulted on for a little bit. So there's a little bit of a prior relationship. So I give that context to say, because I went from tweet to offer in 8 hours.
Well, you're like 10 years later, you're finally cashing in on what you originally started the YouTube channel for.
Yeah, to bring it back full circle.
Creating a network. And
I was like, one day someone's going to hire me just because they know me. Like, that's what I said when I started. So yeah, 7 years later, it actually happened.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know, like, everybody's experience is different. And right now, I almost feel weird, like, being really proud of working at RevenueCat, because I know it's like a hard environment for everybody. But it really is like, if you invest in the community, it might take a very long time, but those relationships, especially if you're being honest and being real and being helpful to people, that comes back to help you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I like to say, I always internally track like the goodwill I have with my audience. It's like a weird thing as like a creator, because when you sell something,
when it's too high, you're like, I'm just gonna like be mean for a little bit.
No. It's like if I'm constantly, which it probably feels that way now because I just launched the course. If anyone that follows me on Twitter, when I'm constantly like, here's my next course, here's this, right? That's all I tweet about. You're like draining goodwill when you do that.
Yeah, so like we've all had newsletters we read for a while that we like really liked, and then you're like, well, but lately like everything they do is about this product they have.
Right.
Yeah.
So I try to keep an internal like level of that. And I released a bunch of my courses for free lately, put them on YouTube. So I felt like I built up enough goodwill. Yeah. Launched the course. So now I'm probably spamming the hell out of you guys. Probably annoyed, but yeah, I'm in that mode right now. But that'll stop soon.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, that's how I talk to my kids. I talk about earning trust and spending trust, and it's like you can lose trust as well, obviously, by doing something wrong. But you also spend it by like asking for something or whatever. And if you do that too much, and you're not building it back up, it drains out. That's how relationships work.
Yeah. So I always try to give more than like I get. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And like, I mean, having a YouTube channel kind of dedicated to helping junior developers get into the field feels like it would be fulfilling in that way.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna try and do Josh a favor here and try to start wrapping up.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you the question I ask everybody in the show.
Right.
I'm gonna read it because if I don't, I'll say it wrong. Right. So what is a person or people out there that have inspired you that you'd recommend others check out? Yeah,
so there's kind of two paths I want to go with this. I'm going to say, I don't know this person. We interact on Twitter a little bit, and I'm probably going to butcher the handle because it's a Twitter handle. It's Aether Aurelius or something like that. I can tweet it out.
Okay.
But they're young.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah, they're a young kid. They're a designer / developer, and it's kind of part of the build in public thing. So the two paths I want to go is with the youth. So I don't know how old he is. He's in college, right? So anytime I see like teenagers or super young people like putting in work, putting out good apps, it just blows my mind. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't start coding until 32. At 18, all I cared about was dominating in GoldenEye. Like I did not care about like building a career. Was like, yeah, okay, So it just blows my mind. So I get super inspired when I see the youths of the world,
I feel like I just aged 10 years. Like, man, kids these days.
Yeah, but no, it blows my mind. I'm like, oh my God, what I was doing at 18, 19, like.
Yeah, like the Swift Student Challenge that Apple does for DubDub every year is the same kind of deal where you go and look at their projects and looking at their projects is always like really cool. Mm-hmm. But if you've ever been in person or like talked to those kids, man, yeah, I do feel old.
Yeah.
It's always like they start talking about things that like I still don't even understand.
Right.
And you forget that they're in like high school or college, and then they start talking about like finals, and you're like, wait, what? Hold on, this isn't right. Yeah, we're all doomed.
Well,
the kids are taking over.
I didn't know that about him, that he was still in college at the time, because I emailed him and I was like, hey, can I hire you to like take a pass at my app creator view? Like, don't code it or anything, just like because he was doing all kinds of cool little interactions, like nothing over the top, just the perfect amount of subtle interactions.
It's that like Apple Touch, right? Exactly, that we're all like obsessed with.
And he's really good at it. And he was like, I can't for another 6 months because I have like finals or something like that. And I was like,
You're like, wait a second.
I was like, oh man. So the youth, and then the whole build in public thing, not the MRR updaters of the world, but the like the people that are actually, here's this cool feature I built, or here's my new onboard flow, or here's the setting screen. What do you think, kind of thing? Like I love seeing what everyone's like building out there, and it just makes me want to add that to my app or build some version of it.
Yeah. It's really fun seeing somebody who like. I'm not like usually one who will click on the hashtags and read through everything, but that is one where when I see one that's interesting, I'll actually like click it. And you're right, like a lot of times it's a bunch of grifters, but then you get those ones where like you can see a nugget of something exciting, but it's really early.
Yeah.
And then you follow that person, and then a year later they're like really successful, or they've made this really cool thing, and you feel like you got to like kind of be a part of it.
You
by,
feel like you
hitting the little heart button.
I feel like you discovered a band before they got cool.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Oh, I knew them whenever they were nothing. It's that is really exciting. That's one of the great things about, the internet, I guess, but just being able to find people early on in those paths and then watch them grow.
So that'd be my plea: is share what you're building on Twitter or Mastodon, whatever you're on. Like I love seeing it. I know everyone else loves seeing it too.
Yeah, no, that's great. That'll be in the show notes. I'm probably already follow this person. I'll see their profile picture and immediately know, but I never know anybody's actual handle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to try to actually wrap this up then. So
sounds good.
Where can people find you and your work?
Yeah, so just youtube.com/Sean Allen, and then on Twitter and Mastodon is SeanAllen_dev.
All right, sweet.
All right.
That's the end. Normally there's music, but clapping will suffice.
There you go.
Perfect.